Thank you for coming to this, the 10th Annual Symposium on Learning and Teaching, which the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching puts on every year. Thank John Kane for essentially all of that. Basically, for those of you who are unfamiliar, we try every year to think of a theme that relates to teaching and learning and that would reach a broad audience on campus. And in making that decision this year, we were helped by Nicole Decker and CTS, who gave a recommendation based on a talk that she saw. And this was on the topic of electronic media, electronic books. And we thought that it sounded like a great idea that it would touch a lot of campus. So thank you, Nicole, for recommending Randy Spiwak to come.
I'll leave you the $20 bill when I do it. 50. Sorry.
Randy's training, I mean, he's an astoundingly diverse individual. His training is in accounting. He has an MBA. He later received a EDD from the University of Florida. Taught accounting for a number of years, but went into educational administration and became executive vice president and CFO for a variety of institutions. And somewhere in there, he got interested in ebooks. And at some point, he retired and is currently retired, or yeah. So there you go. This is what you should be planning when you're retired to be doing: giving talks, basically proselytizing the good that can
evangelizing.
Oh, okay. Sorry, have to use the right non-secular terminology. The good things that one can find in electronic books and media. So he's going to be talking about that today. eTexts, past, present, and future.
Paul, thank you. Well, good afternoon. I'm going to compress into about 52 minutes what I normally do in 2 hours. It'll give you a taste of this. How many of you are coming to the workshop tomorrow morning? Because we're going to get into a lot of detail. Good. I'm going to actually have you build what an eText system should be to benefit students and faculty in the institution first. And that's what we had to do the hard way back in 09 and 10, trying to figure this puppy out, because there were not very good solutions that existed back then, and nobody liked it. Students hated it, faculty hated it, the literature was very negative, yet I knew that students couldn't keep affording hardback books, new, used, whatever. It just was too expensive, and too many of our students came ill-prepared to class, so we needed a solution. That's how I got into it as a business officer. And I took my business officer cap off and put my academic cap on when I found out that the real benefits from electronic text is not only the pocketbook, but more importantly, what takes place in the classroom. The student engagement, student success, retention, dropout, withdrawal. And we saw in our institution, not just because of eTexts, but it was one of our major projects, almost a 35% increase in FTE, fundable enrollment, based on almost the same 37,000 head count, because students were more successful not dropping out of classes and doing well and staying. And this was a part of it. So I'm going to go through this as quick as I can. I will stay afterwards, and I think there's also a reception, and I'll be glad to get into any depth you want to talk about. And then those of you who come tomorrow, you'll get into a lot more. About 5 weeks. About 5 weeks ago, I was invited to speak at the National Association of College and University Business Officers. That's not me. That's Bill Gates. I did a keynote on Sunday morning, or a mini keynote. The real keynote was, there were 3,000 people there, business officers, like your own institutions, Nick Lyons, from all over the U.S. And I got in early, sat on the front row, and I wanted you to hear this. I had no idea what Bill was going to have as this topic, but business officers, technology, you knew he had to talk about something. So I want you to hear what he has to say. Just a short snippet.
I'm confused. So the digital experience isn't just a textbook replacement. Yes, it's a textbook replacement. And textbooks are going to completely go away as the screen sizes, and comfort, and ability to navigate which data gets there. The physical textbook is, that clearly has limited life. Most maybe 5 years before students are buying everything digitally. And that's a good thing. Your ability to carry it around or pay less money for it should improve a lot. But the boundary between that textbook and
Nicole, let's slip him $20 too. Everything he said, I couldn't have said it better. It was what I've been preaching since I retired back in February of 2011. I had visited, I think you are institution number 416. The CEO at Delta sent me that letter saying you hit your 1,000,000 miles, and now it's 1,000,002. Way too many air miles. But just helping schools from the point of view of a college. I taught at both undergraduate and graduate level accounting, and was on the administration my whole career. So from one of your own colleagues' point of view, how can we look at this technology where we benefit, not all the people that are in between with their handout? How do you get from the source of the content, whatever it is, published books, open educational resource, basically the free books, the flat worlds, the connections, the open stacks, materials that your faculty create, any of the above, digital born content. How do you get from that to the user, the student and the teacher and the faculty, with the least amount of folks in between wanting something, money? And that's what reduces the cost. And we, as a business officer, I wanted to figure that out. And like I said, as I went down the path, I found out the most important thing was what happened in the classroom. Far more important, than the dollars we saved, and the dollars were substantial. What is you see in this photo? Look real close. That picture was taken yesterday on a Delta flight between Minneapolis and Detroit by the husband of an Oswego graduate who's in seminary. This is what I captured it. It's the best use for a hardback book is to prop up that tablet that he was reading that book on. He was a seminary student. Did you notice the glass in his left hand? It wasn't wine. I think it was Coke Zero. He wasn't preparing doing a rehearsing for giving communion rites. He was drinking so there was the caption for the photograph. No paper, no calories. And this is a fellow that had never used an electronic text, and he was not 18 years old. Didn't grow up on electronics, and would not touch a hardback again. So just sitting there on the airplane next to me. Excuse me. I think that eTexts or electronic textbooks or digital content may have the most profound effect in higher ed, doing two things than any other topic I can think of. It's got to do two things. It's got to do both reducing the cost of education, therefore increasing access to education because students can better afford it, and at the same time having an extremely positive effect on the teaching and learning process, what your symposium is all about. And because I've tried to think of anything else we've done, the first time we started adding bunkers in classrooms to bring technology to the classroom, did we spend less or more? More. Oh, I'm not even on screen. Get back down here. Okay, we spent more. This does both. Reduces cost, and there's a reason why, and we had to figure it out because there was no good model when we started back in 2009. What does the average textbook cost? Dave, Susan?
Depends, I'd say maybe $100.
That's new, used, rentals, any average. Right now, NACIS, the national data says the average undergrad textbook is 156. The average hardback now is pressing 190, graduate level about 196. If you're looking at allied health, engineering, law, some approaching over 300. You all teach nursing here? Fundamentals of Nursing book is over $350 no matter who the publisher is. One book. What does it cost to manufacture that book? This is the shocker for you students that are having to buy. Students, hold your hand up so I can see what you, That $150 book that you bought cost $4.76 to manufacture, paper, ink, binding, etc. Not all of the profit margin, not all of the royalties that a faculty member would get or an author, and not the commissions that the reps would get, but just the cost for manufacturing the book to the sale. So as a business officer, I had to find out before I retired, how do you get from 476 to 156? What was in between, and is there any way to eliminate any of it? Because half of you students don't buy books, can't afford them. Most colleges and universities will say that maybe a little less on a resident institution like yours, a higher percent will actually purchase the book, and may not even through your own store, it may be through eBay, Amazon, other places. Of that 100 students in an average, out of 100 students in a class, if you have 100, about half, or slightly more than half, won't get a textbook at all. Of the remaining 45 or 50%, the majority of those are looking for used books. They're less expensive, about 75% cost of the new book, or give or take a few dollars. Or are going to some other source to buy a book, whether it's eBay or Amazon or something else. The number of new books sold, once a book is 2 semesters old, is about 12%. I've heard publishers say from 10 to 18, but about 12%. Publishers only make money when the book is sold the first time, new. They make nothing when the book is sold the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time. That's why there's a new edition it's supposed to be 3 or 4 years. Some say 3 or 4 weeks. I think most time content does have some improvements and changes. I have seen a book by one of the 3 of the largest publishers that the only change was the color of the cover. That's all. I see a head nodding back there. That was it. It wasn't all new questions. It wasn't all new content, just the color of the cover. Because the new edition then has an effect on, you can't buy a used book when there's no used books yet, not for a semester or 2. Anyway, when I got past the pricing thing, then I wanted to know, what could an electronic textbook provide that a hardback doesn't? To faculty in here, does your hardback textbook that your student using, does it give you as a teacher direct feedback onto how much time has the student spent reading, highlighting, annotating, downloading notes, sharing notes and information among students? No. Does the hardback book give you any feedback at all? Obviously none. Does the electronic text? What I looked at in 2009 was also no. It was not very good. But I didn't give up, and the team that I worked with didn't give up. It just took us 2.5 years to figure it out. What is an eText? An eText is not a PDF file that you see on a screen, an inanimate, fixed, static file. The eText today is a very dynamic tool where the software that you are reading, the eText, will allow all kinds of functionality that make it far better experience than just having a hardback book. And it's what made the whole process today so very different. Every one of us, or almost all of us, our first response when asked about an eText, mine included, was, I read books. I don't want to mess with those electronic things. But then colleges and universities that have gone into piloting and trying this out with willing faculty and willing students, not mandating it, have found that they've been extremely successful, and then the cat's out of the bag and you're not going to get it back in. It will expand. As Bill Gates said, and I think he's right, 4 years ago when I started, or 3.5 years ago when I started going out and lecturing, I was telling everybody I talked to, I thought there was about 10 more years before there would be no hardback books available. Hardback textbooks. I think there'll always be a place probably for novels and things like that, and resource, other library collections, but the textbook, it's going to be gone. So, do you all want to be wait for 5 years and be told what to do, or do you want to get a handle on it today when you can control it and make that cost of that textbook so insignificant that it's no more important to a student than going to McDonald's twice? And that's about what we're going to get the cost of a textbook to. Already happening. The research was very negative. It's very changed. If you read really current literature, actually anything past about 2010 starts getting more positive. And as you look at later articles, it gets real positive, especially those colleges and universities that have found the way to get control of this. Led many cases by the folks from the bookstore. Libraries are way ahead of us on the academic side. They've been digital for years, and now in the classroom side, we're finally getting there. I go through a whole process, and I won't today, I will tomorrow, on what are the steps to stick your toe in the water without having to commit yourself, with the institution not having to spend anything other than time, and with willing faculty and willing students to look at this technology and grab onto it today. A sister institution of yours in Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin Stout, started this process 2 years ago, and they will be 100% converted by spring of 16. All 10,000 of their students will all be in a completely electronic, and they're estimating they will save their students about $6 million a year in textbook cost. It's a lot of money. And their bookstore loses nothing. They still will generate income from it, but it'll be income spread among every student for every book, which is just a little, versus the few students who buy books from the store and the few the books that are sold, new or used. So it's a way of making it much more palatable. Why are textbooks so expensive? I've already given it away. It's a battle. It's a battle between the publisher and the used book industry. Publisher makes no money when a book is sold second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time. Student saves a little, but publishers make nothing. If you ask a publisher to tell you truthfully, why is that book $142.12, they can't give you a straight answer. It's not based on the cost of producing the book, even with their profit mark. It's on what they have to demand for the small percent of sales that take place with the hardback new book and their competition with the used book. If the used book industry disappears and the new and you're using a published book and they're guaranteed that every student in that class purchases a book, the price just plummets. It's a business model that we'll talk about tomorrow that we finally figured out. We were trying to make the process too hard, and the solution was much more simple. Anybody taking Economics 101, it talked about the supply and demand and what it does to reduce that cost. If I can increase the publisher's sales and guarantee it and reduce their cost of operating, 42% of what a publisher spends to run their business deals with the hardback book. What if that goes away? Sell more, cost less, price per unit a lot less. The average in the July of 2010, we went out to bid at Daytona State to every publisher. We only did publishers back then. I didn't even know what an OER was, Open Educational Resource. I didn't know what a free book was, I admit it. I didn't know what a digital born textbook was, a textbook that was created using nothing but digital tools. Back then, we put out a request for proposal, RFP, to all the publishers. 17 publishers, all the major publishers responded. And the response we got back then, 4 years ago, was an average of $37 and change for a textbook in eText format, from a low of 8 to a high of 60, but an average of 37. It's being done now in my new home state of Idaho among all the institutions, and my prediction is that when we get done, we will have textbooks well under $30, and with Open Educational Resources well under $15. Now, how many of you students are going to be upset because you have to pay $15 for your textbook? I don't see any hands going up, and we believe the same thing. I'll skip the alternatives because you've done everything in your store. I did some inquiry to try to help reduce the cost that all good universities and colleges do with maximizing used books and custom publishing and all the things that you do. It's just not enough. Students cannot afford textbooks. At my institution, which was a community college with 13 four-year degrees as well, because our universities couldn't keep up with demand, my students paid more for textbooks than they paid for tuition. That's a problem. Was it Houston? We got a problem? We had a heck of a problem. That's when I decided, before I retired, I got to fix this one way or the other. I pulled the committee together, asked 25 faculty and staff representing any area that's touched by books, obviously teaching faculty, the bookstore, business office, financial aid, library. Brought them all together, told them what this this vision I had of replacing all of our books with electronic devices and electronic text. And would they help me go down this path to try to figure out if we could do it? Because I couldn't find anybody who had. Someone ought to argue with me. What about University of Phoenix? No, they're online. Still require you to buy books for many of their classes. Your own online programs still require you to buy hardback books for many of the online classes. You're totally online except for that stupid book. So why should it not be in the same format and a lot less expensive? We looked at all the things that people were doing pre-eText. Hardback book, notebook, highlighters, pens, writing notes, creating study groups. If we took all of these activities that took place manual and you moved to electronic, would it work as well or worse or better? And that was the first set of discussions. This committee worked for 2.5 years trying to figure out how to make eText work. And this is where we started. We created the committee. We met with the publishers. We signed non-disclosure statements, and we asked the publishers, where are you, Mr. Publisher, with this thing called electronic textbooks? And lo and behold, we found out that the 5 that we brought in, the largest 5, were all in the same place. They were all getting ready. A company like McGraw-Hill had been getting e-copyrighted for over 11 years back in 2010. Ask me the last time that publishers were using typesetting to produce a book. It's a picture of me with a head of hair. They've been electronic for years, so why didn't that technology get transferred over to us, the faculty and students? Because we didn't have the other side of it. We didn't have the hardware. We didn't have the software that would allow you to do something with that digital file to make it a live textbook. Till Adobe came out with PDF, and even that's just an image. Has less value than paper. With the original PDF files, could you use your highlighter on the screen of your desktop, laptop, notebook? Could you write notes in the margin back on the old PDF? No. Could you do searches? Could you do translate to other languages? No. Couldn't do any of those things. You could do it on paper, at least some of them. So it had less value in the early days than paper did. That's why it was such a negative experience. I thought that the whole problem with eText was device. This is all pre-tablet, pre-iPad, pre-slate, pre-smartphone. 2009, guys, is when the iPad came out. Christmas. Some of you that are old enough to remember. So we didn't have good solutions. Just think if this was a class, this is a classroom. If you all brought in the early laptops and notebooks that had come out, those big heavy ones, what was the battery life on those? A couple hours. How many plugs of sockets do you see in the wall here? Because you all have to be plugging in, or you're going to be dead before the class is over, and surely before your next 2 classes that day. We had a whole committee looking on nothing but power supply. How are we going to help students when the batteries went dead on their devices? That's how unavailable the solutions were in 2009 and 10, only 4 years ago. We put out that publisher RFP that I told you about. We were shocked to get responses back at $37 a book. So then, when we knew we could get the content from publishers at that inexpensive, we knew that part of it was partially solved. Now we had to figure out, what are we going to put it on? Was it a piece of equipment or was it software? Turned out that the software platform, the software that allows you to read and annotate, highlight, share notes, and on and on and on, all this functionality, was far more important than the device. I was going to insist that the school buy 37,000 pieces of identical equipment, distribute them to all the students that were at our 6 campuses, collect back from them a little bit each time they took a class, put all of these electronic text on our file servers. Our IT guys are having heart attacks. Write our own software for reading it. It was a me, or a we solution. That was a nightmare. The real solution that we figured out 2.5 years later was any student with any device they have. We need to find a solution that will work on these apples that I see here, or on your even on your smartphone, any device. Let the students come with whatever they're going to come with. Don't dictate. Same thing on content, any content. So we realized my vision was not a vision, it was a nightmare. When we finally got to the solution, it was 180 degrees different. We created a whole series of committees. These are just alphabetical listing. This is not where SUNY Oswego will start. If you make the decision you want to start pursuing this, half of these committees you don't need anymore. You don't need one on connectivity. You don't have to worry about getting to the internet anymore. Your campus is wired. You got Wi-Fi every place. You don't have to worry about battery life. Your devices last. My new Surface Pro 2 will go 3 days for a charge. Longer if I don't use it a lot, but 3 days. We talked, these are just some of the issues. Many of the things that you may believe today are problems with an electronic text, beliefs that you have are as wrong today as they were 5 years ago. How many here, I think there's a problem that the book runs out in the semester, you can't get to it anymore? That's what I thought. That is the case for some bad solutions, but not the case for the good solutions. There's just a lot of things that we thought we knew about electronic text that turned out to be misinformation when you really found out what the facts were. Here's what I think will happen. I think that we will eliminate or minimize some of that third-party cost, that $476 to $156. In fact, I think we're going to eliminate or minimize a lot of it. The textbook edition race, I think, will go away. How many algebra books can faculty pick from? Freshman algebra. Take a wild guess today. How many hundred? How many? Since Pythagoras, how many times do we have to rewrite algebra? But we do, and the reason is to have that new book. Something's attractive. A faculty member picks it, and then a publisher gets a sale. I think with electronic text, you'll see publishers making their books smarter and having less and less of them, except for those maybe technologies or those disciplines where the constant change. Medicine, technology, science. But in areas where there's not as much change, you're not going to have to update that book as often. Or it can be updated by the faculty member every semester without a new edition. That's a key. I think we can reduce the cost of students by 25% or more, or 75% or more, as we start to, this starts to mature. Last week, there was an announcement at Indiana University, IU, in Bloomington. They're a leader in using this technology. They had just done their second request proposal on content from publishers, pricing. And one of the publishers, and I believe it's McGraw-Hill, has already agreed to, they will sell eTexts for 25% of the cost of a hardback, using the business model that Indiana U puts together. I don't like basing price as a percent of hardback, because I can't control hardback price. I want a price, and what we're doing in my state of Idaho is we're replicating this with all of our universities, public, private, 2-year, 4-year, proprietaries even, and with the Albertson Foundation, and I think George Lucas Foundation yesterday called and said they want to be a part of this. And we hope to have, from every source of content, a 3-level tier. These are inexpensive books, medium price, and high price. 10, 15, 20, something like that. And let them tell us which of their books, where they fit in those 3 prices. And that's it. That's the only price. So if you're in a class that has a lot of content change, that'll probably be an expensive book. This is not to be, their algebra or their freshman English writing skills book may be the $10 book. It's a book where there's high volume and maybe not as much change. Okay. So I think we'll still generate revenue in our stores, but I think your bookstore that you now call College Store, which is the right name, will be more and more involved in hardware and providing other services, even to the point of being a focal point for your faculty when it comes to aggregating content within this electronic text. I want this text. In fact, I want a piece of this one, a piece of that one, and a piece of this one. I want to put in these this video with it. I'd like to have these 16 PowerPoints, these 42 articles, and I want it all put in this format. And when the student opens, you all are moving from, I guess, Angel to Blackboard. When you open your LMS, open Blackboard, there'll be an icon on there. You'll click it, and there's all the books you have that semester, prior semester, will all be there if you had been on an eText. So someday in the future, as long as you're a student, you'll have access to that material. And if you want the material after you are leaving the institution and no longer have access to the LMS, the Learning Management System here at the university, you'll copy it, you'll print it. You'll print it to a PDF file, not paper, and you'll just store it away. And if you want to have it, it'll include your notes, your highlighting, everything else, not just your text. So you can have access to the content in perpetuity. So the business model, what works best? You guarantee the provider, the publisher or the OER provider, whatever, 100%. If the student signs up for that section and it's an eText section, they have no choice anymore. It's collected at registration. But it's a nominal amount. Anybody here take biology or chemistry? Did you drop the class because you found out that there was a lab fee for glassware or for frogs?
I wanted to, I didn't though.
You didn't have choice. If you want to take biology, you pay for the lab fee. But if it's a small amount, $20, $25, $30, an immaterial amount, in 41 years as a business officer at a college or university, I never had a student come into my office screaming mad because they had to pay $25 for cats for dissection. It was just part of the cost of taking that class. If textbooks can be that inexpensive and immaterial, you'll have the same non-response. Students will all come prepared. 100% will come prepared. And since it's collected at registration and it's not a choice, what about pirating? Any student here want to buy last semester's eText when they know they're going to pay for this semester's eText? No students that stupid. And this semester's eText is going to be smarter because the faculty will have taken the same book, added new articles, added new materials, aggregated it. They won't be aggregating it into Blackboard anymore. They'll be aggregating it into the eText platform. Because what happens with Blackboard at the end of the semester? Can you get to all the material that you have in that course? You can't get to the course anymore. The portal's shut off for that section. Only the ones you're going to take the next semester. Wouldn't it be neat if it was always there? You paid for it, it should be there. So there's some things that you'll be doing different in the future that you can't do, or that you're not doing today. And our institutions will be in control because you all will decide what software platform is best. And you're going to want one software platform for all your content. If you do it based on what the publishers provide, then it's a different dashboard for every single publisher. One of them does highlighting this way, another does it that way, one does annotation this way, one allows you to ask questions and the other doesn't. It would be like you operating 5 different email systems simultaneously. Everyone has a different email address, everyone has a different username and password, and they don't talk to each other. And that's what we're telling our students today. You wonder why the students that are getting eText on their own, and there are quite a few students now, they're saying between 10 and 15% are getting eText on their own and ignoring our institutions because they found it, they tried it, they liked it, or they didn't like it, but the ones that liked it are doing it, and they're doing it on their own, but they're going directly to a publisher having to use whatever software platform that publisher provides, rather than one that the institution picks and tells Mr. Publisher, it'll work on this or adios. And there are solutions that will work on any content, any book ever printed can be run seen on the more universal, independent platforms. These are just, I'll pass these. David, I'll get with you and Susan on these, on what things will happen in the bookstore, but it'll all be positive things. So, I think our solutions will be that this will be built around open systems, multiple publishers, any source, anything a teacher wants. Does every faculty member at Oswego teach cover to cover? Here's a book, cover to cover. Are you students paying for those books, cover to cover? That's not fair. What if the faculty member said, I only want to use chapters 1 through 13 out of this 32 chapter book? Would the publisher be willing to sell it for less? They're going to sell it for less than its e-format at anyway. But what if they only want just certain chapters? That can be negotiated. What if a faculty member can present to the student their book that has a piece of this, a piece of that, and some of this, and all that added together was still very inexpensive, and they were going to cover every bit of it? Why should we as institutions not provide students Only the material we want them to learn, nothing more. I was a very studious student, and I read cover to cover, and I wasted a lot of time because a lot of that material I never saw on the test, and I quite honestly forgot lots of it. I wish I had been given just what I was told I needed to know. We can do that with eTexts. Online, offline. This is pretty important. Back in the old days, when you got an eText, you either downloaded it to a device and it was on your device. Lord help you if you lose your device or the hard drive crashes, or it was offline. If it was online, you had to get to the internet. What if you didn't have Wi-Fi in the dorms or the library? What if you don't even have Starbucks in town except for over at the college campus center, or McDonald's, and they didn't have Wi-Fi back then. So a solution that was one or the other was not good. We were trying to figure out inexpensive ways using cell technology, so for $10 a month, students could get an air card, stick it in their old laptop, and have 2 gigabytes of data a month or something. And then when we found out there were a couple of platforms that were out there, software platforms, that realized that not all students will have connectivity all day long, all weekend long, no matter where they are, not as much as today. So I needed something that had both an online solution and an offline solution. The primary solution is your eText should reside in the cloud, so that in their browser base, so that if you can get to a browser on any device, any browser, whether it's Yahoo, Google, Firefox, Mozilla, doesn't matter. If you can get to a browser, you can get to your book. And if the device has a browser, so that eliminates a couple devices. The old Kindles, novels are great, textbooks are terrible. The Nooks, they should be thrown out anyway. But anything else that you get to a browser, so that students, whatever you got will work. Even that old TSR, remember where Trash 80 was? No, they don't remember that. They're not old enough. If you could get to a browser, you could get to your eText. And that you could download your book, and as much of the functionality as possible using tools like Google Chrome offline. It allows you to do a lot, and it keeps it all in cache. And the minute you go back online, all that highlighting and note-taking you did, the questions that you were sending out to your colleagues in class or to the faculty member, all of a sudden, boom, they update the cloud version, so your book is updated, all the correspondence just got sent out, and that happened the minute you went online. So you want a solution that does both online and offline, not one or the other, because you're too many limitations either way. I think that you obviously aren't going to be Angel forever, because Angel doesn't exist anymore. They were bought out by Blackboard, and you probably won't be Blackboard forever. There's just all kinds of new tools that are coming out that institutions will change. So that if you get a solution that is limited to the learning management system you are currently using, what are you going to do when you change? What's going to happen to all that student content out there, all those textbooks that are out there? You want a solution that the students can get to through whatever learning management system the institution decides to use or is using, and that if you change, it's just, all it is a hot button, and you go get the data. You want to be in control of this, don't let it be in control of you. So, we're looking for a universal e-reader platform, meaning software. Something that is any, not we. Open device. Students bring in whatever you got. Buy whatever you purchase. What percent of our students have devices? What do you think? I thought it was about 25-30%. Not. At most institutions, well over 65% have some type of a true PC device or Apple device, whether it's a desktop, laptop, Apple, or a Slate tablet. Some institutions over 95%. 100% of you guys have smartphones, and you get 2 a year, and you can do this on a smartphone as well as on a laptop. And I have seen students with their iPhones or their Samsungs actually reading, maybe not the entire book, but reading the important parts for a test, what they've highlighted, annotated, the notes they made, things they've tagged or tabbed, because they want to walk right into that test with that fresh in their memory. That you got to make sure everybody leaves their cell phone at the door. It's just too easy today to look up data. Anyway, if you want a solution that takes whatever new integration and technology takes place, right now most eTexts, the current range is called EPUB 3, EPUB format. There's going to be a replacement of that, so make sure that the company you work with is working in the current technology and is already dabbling in tomorrow's technology and is not using yesterday's technology, because that's where you're going to be if you do. Print demand. Do you students print anything? It's okay. Yeah, we do. Some eTexts are limited to what you can print. No more than 50% of the book. No more than 50 pages a week. Or, there's some limitations. Why? Piracy. The fear the publisher has that you're going to print that electronic book and sell it to somebody, either on campus or some other institution. How do you eliminate it? It's called the Digital Rights Management, DRMs. What do you do to protect the publisher's copyright authority? We're going to spend time on talking about this tomorrow, but I'll give you a hint. If you could print all you wanted, as often as you wanted, the full book or pages, with your notes, without your notes, with your highlighting, without your highlighting, with his highlighting and her notes in my book, because they have sent it to me electronically because we formed an electronic study group. Because students don't all do their homework from 5 in the evening to 10 in the evening, do you? No. Where our faculty may be at home watching TV or going to bed, our students are working. And that's where you want a system that they can do these at whatever time, 24 hours a day they want to. So, when you print a page, the publishers will be well protected if that page comes out of the printer, no matter whether it's on your little desk printer that's tied to your PC, or it's a network printer, or it's one of the printers in the library. It comes out and it'll have a barcode down the side, it'll have across the top. This was printed for Dr. John Kane on this day, not for sale. It'll have watermarks that you can't see, and it'll know who did it and when. The software, because you have to hit transmit to print, and I'll know that John printed 5 copies of that entire book. I don't know what printer he printed it on, but I know at this day, this time, he hit go and it did this many pages. Now I'm going to be asking John, why did you print 5 copies of that book, John? What were you planning on doing? It's called wearing stripes. It's the same copyright infringements that if you went to a copy machine, laid it down there, a hardback book like we did today or yesterday, and printed pages. Only this time I'm capturing the data, because I can't tell on a hardback book when I put it on a copy machine and start copying pages who did it and when they did it. Now I can. That's when the publishers started feeling a lot more easy about giving you, the student, unlimited ability to print. And then you can always print to Adobe and just print a PDF file and keep it without printing paper for as long as you want. Okay, ADA. We have some students that have some disabilities. Is eText, does it suit them better or worse?
Better.
Why?
Well,
It's true.
Well, eTexts would really have the ability to deal with any kind of visual and audio impairments.
When a student is sight impaired and they have to use tools like JAWS or Braille writers, to do it, your bookstore, you go to the publisher and you ask for a electronic PDF file. Then you send it over to the Student Disability Services Office, they use JAWS, they convert it. How many days does that take after the beginning of the semester when the student walked in before that blind student might have a book? Dave's nodding his head, it's too long. In the eText format, the minute you register for the class and the institution opens up the learning management system, in your case, Angel, Blackboard, the minute you open it, even if you haven't, we're not even to drop an ad yet, your book is there. When you drop that course, you're automatically refunded. It's not until the end of drop ad that you really are committed to buy that electronic text. Any of you students ever gone to the bookstore and bought a bundle? It's a book and it's a workbook and it has an access code and it's shrink wrapped, and then you decided to drop that physics class and take underwater basket weaving. And what did Dave tell you in the bookstore when you brought that stack of books back that you had opened up? You hadn't written in them, you just took the shrink wrap off. I think Dave probably had to tell you, sorry. Are you taking them back? Well, good for you. Most bookstores that have third parties that run it will tell you, sorry, Charlie, they're yours. If you do it in electronic format, you just drop the course. At the end of drop add is when you've committed. Did you do you ever have lines in the bookstore for returns? You won't have lines when you're electronic. You don't even go to the bookstore electronic. You'll go to the store for other things. Everything from your sweatshirts to computers to other things that students will get. But it's someday down the road, you won't be going there to buy a book. It's going to happen, so we got to learn how to deal with it and turn our stores into providing services that students want, in addition to the retail things they currently do. I think that our bookstores will end up being, instead of 100% retail, will be some percentage retail and some percentage IT, information technology, because I think our bookstores will be those that will help train faculty how to use the tools and train students how to use the tools. Who gets paid more on your payroll, on your pay scale system here? Your IT guys or your retail guys? IT. So if my job becomes part information technology, part of technology guy, and part clerical or retail, who knows what might happen. At my own institution, I made a commitment to all the folks that were there, that for those that wanted to stay, and it was a slow attrition, it would take us 5 to 7 years, we thought, to make the change, that they weren't going to lose their jobs at all. If they didn't want to get involved in technology, then take a job in the business office and accounts payable or some other area in student services. For those that did want to stay, we would train them and they would have to take more pay. I did not have fights. I had a lot of people that were helping, and you just have to approach it that way. I'm watching the time. Here's what faculty like best about eTexts in those institutions that are now 2 and 3 semesters down the road. Day one access, not one day, day one access. The students walk in with their materials today. When do you students buy your books? You always walk into the first day of class with your books, or you walk in to see if you like the class and the teacher before you buy the book? When's the big rush in the bookstore? Before semester starts or right in the beginning? We all know. Faculty love the idea of a single platform where the students, no matter what the course was, what the content was, it's one platform. It's not one different one for every published book they use, because that's what you would do if the students do it on their own. The cost reduction was their third. You can just look at the list from most important to the least important. And look at the difference when you ask students. These are surveys from University of Washington and Indiana University. Most important thing for the student was the reduction of cost, not first day access. And then no long lines, no searching for textbooks. Some bookstores don't even allow you to go search for the books anymore. You walk up to a counter, they bring you the stack when you hand them your registration, or it's done electronically, you go pick up your stack. So this gives students a lot more choice. If you sign on to your LMS, you sign on to Blackboard, and your book is there, no access codes, no another second username, no second password, single sign-on. If you ask students how important that is, I've heard students more often than not ticked off because they have to memorize multiple access codes, usernames, passwords. Just one. One's enough. Get onto the LMS and you're done. So you can see what the students thought. What will eText look like in the future? And I think the word eText will probably go away because it's too narrow. Whether we call it digital content or whatever it's going to be called in the future, because it's more than just text. It's video, it's audio, it's a lot of things beyond just being text. I think what we will end up having is when you, as a student, will open up your text, it will be an aggregation of printed material, electronic format, audio, video, articles, PowerPoints, anything that helps you learn. That's the whole name of the game, whatever. And I think it will also serve students differently. Does everyone in this class learn by reading? Are they visual learners? I'm not. I can read, but I struggle. I'm an applied learner. I've got to do it. If I can do it and I can show you how, I've learned. If I just read it, I struggle to try to remember. How about those of you that learn better by hearing? An audio learner. And I'm not sure that they're the proper terminology. Maybe there's some education majors here to help me. But we learn differently. What does is the textbook, a hardback textbook? What format does that really serve? Visual learner. What about an eText? Anything. If the software will allow all these other things to take place, can you listen to an eText? With the right platforms and the right format, yep, you can have the book read to you. It's called audiobooks. You buy them all the time. For those of us that are driving home to wherever we're driving, that may not live on campus, I can listen to the textbook as I'm driving. Can't do that with a hardback. The low cost will continue to get lower as we limit, as we focus in on what we as a faculty want to have the student to have access to, what we want to have them read. And it'll also get lower, I think, over time as our faculty start using more and more open educational resource and not rely as heavily as we've had to on published resource. I am not anti-publisher. I'm very pro-student. That's the difference. There's a lot of good published materials out there, and there will be. And I think when the price comes down and publishers make their books smarter, I think that will keep the reason they'll stay as the predominant source of content. Books that are free, it's hard to have somebody be willing to spend a lot of time making their book, keeping their book smart, adding things to it when they're not being compensated for it, unless they're just wealthy or have a lot of time. I think there'll be networks created. The New York Times has created one called Knowledge Network. Anybody familiar with Knowledge Network? I'm trying to think of the lady who was the vice president. That's not important. But they took all of the New York Times going back to the Civil War forward and digitized it. They signed contracts with NASA, with Smithsonian, so they would have not only text, they would have video, they would have still photo, they would have audio, they would have all this material, put it into a huge database, created their own search engine that was much more efficient in looking up a topic, and then created a thing called ePortfolio. An ePortfolio would allow a faculty member to do a search in this huge database of information on any topic, and then they would get all this stuff back. Here's video, here's audio, here's text, here's a still picture, whatever it may be. And the faculty member could peruse through it. Oh, I like that. I'm going to put that in the portfolio. And I like that. Put that in the portfolio. List it in the portfolio in the sequence they want to present it to students. And lo and behold, maybe for a history class, that is the book. And guess what that costs an institution? $2 per student per year. Unlimited use. And it already exists. And more of these massive databases are being created. This is an older one. This, I think, was piloted either at Penn State or University of Pennsylvania, where it was actually piloted. And we're going to see more and more of this to probably supplement what faculty do with textbooks. I was told, well, I'm right on time. I was told by one of the senior vice presidents at Follett runs many college and university bookstores. It's the largest bookstore operator in the world, or at least in the U.S. And they're a good company. But I called a gentleman I had known for many years, and back in 2009, and I said, Jerry, you're probably not going to be real happy with what I'm doing, and I'd like to invite you to come. We're creating this committee. And he said, oh, you're going to be working on eTexts. And I said, yeah, how did you know? And he said, yeah, well, we are looking at it too. He said, aren't you getting near retirement? Now, this is in 09, I retired in 11. And I said, yeah, I'm thinking about it. He said, yeah, me too. We're both in our early 60s. He said, look, this isn't going to happen for 15 or 20 years. The technology's ready, the world's not ready, students don't like it, faculty don't like it. Quit worrying about it. It's too blankety blank hard. You'll never get the providers of the content, publishers, the hardware guys, the software guys, the connectivity problems, meaning how do you download and access to the internet. You got all these pieces of the puzzle, and you'll never get them all together. So go worry about something else and let the next guys do it. Well, I told him, I said, you don't know me that well, even though we've known each other 25 years. I'm like a bulldog. I'm not going to give that bone up until there's nothing left. And we failed at our institution many semesters. Many times we went down the wrong path and had to figure something else out till we finally got something that worked. And that's what I share. That's what I'll be talking about tomorrow, helping you build it and then telling you whether you're right or whether there's another solution that will help you work. So Is it going to be 2020? Heck no, it's here today. And if you don't get a handle on it today, in 5 years or less, you're not going to get a handle. You'll be told what you're going to do because you'll have to take what's out there provided. The best thing for you is to get a handle on it so that it's your decision, you control it, and all you're doing is acquiring content and making it available in a software platform and letting students have access to it on any device they have through your existing LMS controlled by your faculty. It's the first time since Gutenberg in 1439 made a printing press that who's in control of the content? Not the author, not the publisher, not the bookstore, it's we, the faculty. We're in control. We can pick the content and make it available to our students extremely inexpensively. And that's where it needs to stay. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you. I'll be glad to stay as long as you wish and just answer questions you have some, and I hope to see some of you all tomorrow morning. Did you want to put a plug in for tomorrow?
Yep, tomorrow morning, starting at 9.
8:30 for the breakfast.
This is in the Campus Center 114, which is the room on the far end. Anyone is welcome to come. We have a little breakfast, snack stuff, and then we have pizza at lunchtime. So if you'd like to come, please.
It'll be very interactive. I'll talk less, you'll talk more, and we'll have fun. We're going to break into smaller groups of 4 or 5, and we'll be in competition to see who comes up with what makes eTexts work. We'll do it piece by piece, and we'll compress 2.5 years into 2.5 hours.
Does anyone have any great questions now?
Yeah. Can you just maybe be a little bit more transparent about your role as a business owner in this?
I don't own a business. My business, eTexts Consult, I had to have a format for Uncle Sam to be able to deduct from my taxes my cost of doing this. It's a great question though. In Thanksgiving of 2010, one of the software platform companies called me, and they had seen an article that I had written in the Chronicle of Higher Ed about what we were doing at Daytona, and they said, "We've been looking for you," meaning the institution, not me, for 10 years. What made you come up with all of these solutions the way you approached it? And I said, failures. Failure after failure after failure. We finally figured it out. We were kind of bullheaded. And so they came to visit our campus and shared with us their software platform. Our committee went crazy with it because it did all the things we were trying to do, and it solved many of the problems we didn't know were solvable. We're having a state dinner. That night, the CEO of the company, it was a very small startup company, said, "What are you going? We heard somebody say you're going to retire." And I said, "Yeah, February of 11, next February. I got 41.5 years. Time for me to hang it up." And he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm moving to Idaho. I'm living in Florida. I'm moving to Idaho." That's a long story. I'll do something. I'm going to learn how to fly fish, play golf. I'll be a greeter at Walmart. I'll do something. And they said, "Well, would you be willing to go out and just lecture? We'll provide all your travel funds. We'll pay you as a consultant a flat amount. We will never tell you what school to go to, what school not to go to. You're never to mention our name." Did I mention anybody's name today? And I won't tomorrow. You'll find what works best for you on your own. All they wanted was an evangelizer. They wanted a Pied Piper, somebody to go out and talk. Was it easier for Nicole to find me to come to you all because I came from higher ed, or are you going to go out and seek out a salesman from some company to come talk to you? I wear the same outfit you guys wear. I did for 41 years what you are doing. So the door opens. I've been invited to 400, you're number 416. Because I only tell you what I learned and what works for us, because I am one of you. So that's what I do. My connection is that they're just covering my cost. I'm not going to do this forever. When there are enough institutions that are mature at using eTexts that can help each other, then I can go learn how to play golf. Maybe 2 years, maybe 3. So it's fun for me. I get financial gain out of it, but it's paid as a consultant. I just get to be my own boss. That's a good question. Thanks for asking, because otherwise it looks like I'm selling something. I'm selling you a concept, not selling you hardware, software. I don't represent publishers, bookstores, just little old me. Yes?
I guess my question is in terms of the copyright, because you talk about this as a content aggregator, and so if I were right now to go in and try to create kind of a, I don't remember what it's called, but my own book, I guess. So, but
Pieces and parts.
Yeah.
Custom book.
But from multiple authors, multiple books, I can only use like 2 chapters out of each one based on copyright, and so I'm wondering how exactly.
For published material, you will have negotiated, or the institution will, or you'll go to a consortium of eTexts schools, and it says, from this publisher, they'll sell you the rights for anything they produce at X number of cents per line, or X number of cents per character, or X number of dollars per page, whatever it's going to be. We don't know yet. This is just being done now in about 3 states. So that you'll have some formula you'll go to if you want to purchase pieces and parts, and that will be done by the bookstore. Just like the bookstore does your orders now, you're going to tell the bookstore, my eText, I want 3 pages of this McGraw, 3 chapters of this McGraw-Hill book, and I want 6 of this one and 4 of that. And David and his crew will either do the negotiating or have negotiated in the past and build it, aggregate it for you. The other thing that you have to be careful of is articles and other pieces of materials that are out there in the internet or that you have access to. The software that allows the faculty member to aggregate it, or the bookstore to aggregate it, or the software platform company to aggregate it, because it can be done in any source, they will sign off electronically that they have the copyright authority. Now, if you want to lie and say you do and you don't, it's no skin off my teeth. Our librarians will hang you. But that's the only way that you're going to get protection, is the faculty member will have to sign off that I have authority. Many of your libraries have open license agreement with a lot of different content, and using that's a good place to start. Your librarians here are pretty savvy on what electronic volumes they have access to and what they have license agreements to, and they'll get even more savvy when you start demanding pieces and parts coming from their database of license of printed content. Good question.
There, I am a librarian here, and I just wanted to plug one of the electronic initiatives that we have. We have access to electronic titles, and a lot of them, they're multi-use access as well, and I know there are some professors already using that as a way to have a required text for their entire class. So that is another way that you can use what we already have as an option. So what I would recommend is contact your liaison for your department and talk about what are some of the electronic texts that have multiple use access right now.
I told you the library was in the lead, not the academic side of the house, the library. At the institutions that are most advanced, that's where it started, because they've been digital for a long time. True?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I'm not anti-library.
No, not at all. No, we are also very much wanting to help students save money.
Oh, yeah.
We advocate for electronic materials, so.
My hopes for your institution that we get done tomorrow, we will have identified a nucleus of people, faculty, bookstore folks, library folks, financial aid, anything, any area of the college, students that are either touched by or touch the instructional content. We'll create an eTexts committee, or whatever you end up calling it, digital content committee. And that from that, you'll start doing your research, and I'll put you in touch with lots of institutions that are already down the road to look at the easiest ways to look at piloting, testing this, and then actually implementing it. And what will be the least, will be the easiest to accept, and will benefit the students the most, the quickest. You don't have to reinvent the wheel on this. We did the wheel, Indiana did the wheel, Cal State did the wheel, and all of us ended up, you could interchangeable wheels, because there's only a few ways to solve this that really work. Unless you want to go to a proprietary solution where take what this publisher has and that's it. And I love publishers, but I don't want their solution. I want their content, not their solution. They need to be in the content business, not the software business. They probably don't like me to say that, too bad.
Well, it's also like custom books aren't, I have a custom book in my honors class, but I can only, if I make it through McGraw-Hill Create, I can only use what McGraw-Hill offers.
That's it.
McGraw-Hill's got no interest in me importing anything else.
Heck no,
That
and
would
they're
be-
not gonna let you
and
put
it's limited.
Cengage's content on that McGraw platform
No,
either.
no.
I don't blame them. It's called free enterprise, but I want us to be in control.
Right.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I will stay, if you want to ask some private question, I'll be glad to answer. And best wishes to all of you.